Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are creating a birthday card. This is actually for my oldest sister. She doesn't watch any of my channel, so this will not be a surprise for her. We will not be spoiling any surprise. But anyways, getting into it. So I found a color palette off of Pinterest that I really liked and I wanted to give it a try. So I am a sucker for pinks and blues together, but I really like these peachy colors also, and so I really wanted to give this particular color palette a try. So what I have here is a Tailored Expressions. This is the ROCKIN RHOMBUS. That was actually a free gift with X amount purchase from them, and I wanted to give it a try. So I also went into my stash and found this is the Sizzix hexagon or stitched hexagon frames, and I'm going to make this look almost like a vase. That was kind of my goal, is to have like a DIY makeshift vase or, plant holder. Altenew and I think Pink Fresh, and I know that Penny Black have, flower holders or vases or that kind of thing. But I don't have any of those, so I'm just kind of using what I have. That bronze kind of trophy looking thing, that you can actually use with this particular die set, and this is the Best Bouquet from the Greetery. It is a stamp and a die. Now what's cool is that you can either, maybe you don't like to die cut, so you can just get the stamp and the die to like cut it all out. Or maybe you like to die cut, but you're not a huge fan of stamping. So one of the cool things about this is that you can actually die cut all of these pieces out and make the same bouquet. It's really cool. I encourage you to go to the Greetery's website and look at all of the things that you can do with this particular set. They did a really great product review over it and ways to use it, and it was really great. Another one of the things that I love about this particular bouquet is that it's already put together for me. I am not very good at putting bouquets together, and so I appreciate when companies go ahead and do that for me. But you could actually use the dies by themselves, or you can use them with the entire product suite like intended. So that gives you a little bit more versatility with it. So I went ahead and took this and die cut it with some HAMMERMILL cardstock from my stash, and I kept the negative piece and I put this into my mini Misty, and I'm going to use this as an easy way to make sure everything lines up and I don't have to work on a hope and a prayer that I'm lining everything up really well. My ink pads are very juicy. I over inked them, so that was my fault. And so I'm trying really hard to press gently. That is an oxymoron. I'm trying to press gently so as not to really blur out all of these lines. And I ended up not getting the best impression kind of toward the center there. It's not the end of the world. If I wanted to, I could just very carefully re-ink that particular section. I just chose to let it ride. So I have been using the Hero Art Stampin' Scrub block. I think that's what it's called. And I really like it. And I recently purchased some refills. And I'm just showing you how quickly and easily it is to refill those. I have been told that you can wash these and use them again. I have not done that yet, but I peeled this one off and replaced it, and I intend to wash it and see how it does. We'll see. I'll let you know. I am just using that to scrub my stamp off, clean it off, put it back in the packaging, and move on to the next layer. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. But the fourth layer has an A and a B because it does detail layers on 2 separate flowers. 3 technically, but they're 2 separate stamps. And they're labeled on the packaging, makes it very easy. This is a very easy stamp to line up. So if you're trying to kind of dip your toes into stamp layering, this is a great one. It's fairly forgiving, but it's actually quite easy to line up just because there are such distinct shapes. And that's one of the things that I encourage you to find is a distinct shape for you, and to always keep your stamp packaging. Usually on the websites of the particular product, they will have an area where you can download their packaging, and that makes it very easy. But if by chance you have thrown it away or it got lost or ruined, whatever, the dog ate it, I don't know, you can always go to the company's website and usually find the packaging and layering and information and guide. But I still have mine, and so I refer to that quite often just to kind of find, like I said, a distinct shape. But like I said, it was very easy. This is a very forgiving and very easy stamp to line up. Some of them are not that way, but this one was. So one of the things that I'm doing is just going through and lining everything up. I have been heat setting in between the layers just because I find that the inks layer on top of one another, or not, they don't blend as well. And that's what I want. I don't want them to blend. I want them to stack on top of one another. I hope that makes sense. And so I find if you actually heat set in between layers, you accomplish that a lot easier than if you don't. So I do heat set these, and I thought my camera was recording and it was not. So the video is going to cut out, and all of a sudden, magically, this is going to be all done. But I will tell you the inks that I used. So I used, these are all Concord and 9th inks. I used NECTER, that was my lightest. CLEMENTINE was my mid-tone. PIMENTO was my dark or detail layer. CLOVER was my greenery. And then I'm going to eventually bring in Harbor, but I don't show you that until later. And that is, the Harbor is going to be to stamp the sentiment. And I just wanted to have another pop of that blue somewhere on the card. And so I chose to use that on the sentiment. So I'm just going to go through and layer all of these together until I have completed the actual image. So once that's all done, I have glued the white panel flat to my cream card base. That is a cream card base from Hobby Lobby. It's just their cream cardstock. And that is an A2 size card when folded, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But I did trim down the rhombus panel to 4 by 5 1/4 just so I could see a little bit of that cream on the edges. And then this panel is Lessebo salt water, yes, cardstock, and it's of a heavier weight. And I ran that through that same ROCKIN rhombus embossing folder, and that is a 2D folder, so it's one of the thinner ones, the original kind of ones. And I ran that same through that embossing folder also. And here I am taking this to my Fiskars paper trimmer, which has a wire guide. And at first I cut along the right on the outside edge of some of the circles. And I'm going to come back and I'm actually going to cut on the inside edge of those same circles. But I'm just using the wire guide to make sure that everything is straight and even and I'm not cutting anything crooked. I did notice that like my top and my bottom margins are not the same, like they're cut off at different angles. That's going to play a factor later, but I'm not too terribly worried about it. The flowers on top of it kind of distract from the fact that those margins are not necessarily even. So I'm just going to kind of continue to go bring it back to my card panel to see if I like how things are lining up and the margins I have. And I'm just going to continue to trim until I'm happy with what I've got. When I'm happy with that, I'm going to work on my greeting. So I picked a sentiment from that Best Bouquet stamp set. So this is a way to kind of limit all the products that you're bringing out, is to find a sentiment that's actually on the stamp set that you were using, your kind of focal image. I chose one that says, hoping it's your best birthday yet, and I'm going to stamp that onto that Sizzix stitched hexagon frames die that I felt fit the best inside there. I did try to go through my stash and see if I could find a, essentially a diamond shape that would work, but I really don't have any. That may be one of the things that I buy in the future, is just a kind of generic diamond shape, like a nesting die, just so I can have that in my stash. But anyway, I went ahead and stamped that sentiment using the Harbor ink from Concord and 9th, and then I'm going to start kind of putting things together. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that saltwater diamond shape down flat. kind of nestling it inside at the margin so the pattern looks somewhat consistent throughout. And then I'm going to pop up my sentiment with a little bit of foam tape because I want to do some tucking with those flowers. I want it to look like they're coming out of the, makeshift vase that we have here. And so I want to do a little bit of cutting, a little tucking. And so I want to be able to do that a little more easily. And so I'm going to apply some foam tape to the back of our greeting here. This is foam tape from Amazon. I've been really pleased with it. It comes in a fairly large roll. I like the dimension of it. It doesn't have an odor. I know sometimes people talk about how these kind of things have kind of a funky smell, and this does not. The backer comes off really well, really easily, and it actually sticks very well. So a great product that I found on Amazon. So I'm going to do some tucking. I did snip between the leaf and one of the flowers, just because I needed to be able to kind of tuck that leaf behind. I ended up trimming it off, but I wanted the flowers to kind of flow over and frame our sentiment a little more. So I'm going to remove the backer from that, nestle it kind of in there so that it looks centered, I guess, for lack of better words. And then I'm going to apply some foam tape to my flowers here, trying to keep in mind what's going to be tucked and what's going to lay on top of foam tape that's already there, so on top of our greeting, and just apply foam tape to the various areas. I'm also trying to make sure that I'm keeping everything within the margins of my card base there. Although if you wanted to not do any trimming, or if you wanted it to be a little more off-centered, you could always place it. If you didn't want to trim off things that were overhanging, you can always place things into a larger envelope. So here I'm going to apply that same foam tape, trying to keep in mind what's being tucked, what's laying on top of our greeting and does not need foam tape. And then I'm going to apply liquid glue to the parts that are going to be laying on top of our greeting, and we're going to adhere that down. Once that's adhered down, it is time for some finishing touches. So those centers of the flowers, you could obviously stamp in the centers that are in the stamp set. You could use an acrylic block to do that. You could use your actual Misty to stamp them down because they aren't in the risk of running into anything else. You could put pearls like I am here. You could put sequins. You could put Nuvo drops, what have you there. You could use it to color it in with a marker or a colored pencil. I chose to use some pearly blue pearls from my stash that I felt gave me a third component of that blue and kind of helped carry the eye around the card. And those are pearls I believe I got from Amazon many, many moons ago. I was going to leave the card like this, but I decided it needed just a little bit of sparkle, so I am taking a Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen and adding that into our card as well. And then once this is on there, and I'm just adding it to the flowers. You could add it to everything or just in detail layers, wherever you wanted to have a little extra sparkle, but I chose to just add it all over my flowers. And once that is done, this card is complete. So I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired, and we will see you next time. Bye.